after we do the roll call for the board, we're going to have the public comment section. The public comments are going to be virtual, as you can see, in addition to some in person. It'll be for a period of 1 hour. And I'd like to remind everyone who is speaking that you will be limited to 2 minutes. So please try to keep your comments to within that time frame. And also, I might intervene and remind you or let you know that the 2-minute limit is up. The testifiers are going to be called in order in which they were registered with the staff. The in-person comments will follow the virtual. Following the virtual public comment, we're gonna do the in-person and also with a 2-minute time limit. After the public comments, we'll adjourn the Board of Housing and Community Development meeting and go into our 2 committee meetings and have those completed and those recommendations can move forward to the board. The first committee meeting is going to be the Fire Prevention Code Development Committee, and then that meeting will be followed by the Codes and Standards Committee. And then the board will reconvene to take action on the recommendations as outlined on the agenda. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Mr. Chair, I'll call the roll. Mr. Berber?
Here.
Ms. Cotton?
Here.
Ms. Dewey? Mr. Farrell?
Present.
Mr. Gregory?
Present.
Ms. Halleck? Mr. Jackson? Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Marinol?
Here.
Murphy? Mr. Fields? Mr. Snell?
Here.
Mr. Trossel?
Here.
Chair, we have a quorum. Or Mr. Chair.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. So, Kyle, I'd like to turn it over to you to recognize our speakers for the public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and as a note, we will be recording the virtual or the comment portion, and we'll go to the first listed speaker.
And sorry, before I get to that, I'd like to add just for the speakers, in the interest of time, if you are speaking and in support or opposition of a previous comment or the comments of a previous speaker, please feel free to just mention that. That would be the most efficient and obviously make your point for the record as to what you are speaking on behalf of. Thank you. Go ahead, Kyle.
Mr. Chair. The first speaker is Mr. Dwayne Garris.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right. My name is Dwayne Garris. I represent the National Association of State Fire Marshals and the Fire Equipment Manufacturers Association. I am speaking in support of the modification to eliminate the exception to the rule for 906.1 in the building code and the fire code. This deals with the installation of portable fire extinguishers in sprinklered buildings. This practice of removing extinguishers in sprinkled buildings has been abandoned by the national codes since 2012. It's been shown with data, especially in a recent study with the Nashville Fire Department, that recently provided us data that's showing that portable fire extinguishers are used extensively to fight small fires in commercial buildings, well before a sprinkler system would activate. So just for the committee's purpose, a sprinkler system activates usually with the quick response sprinklers at 165 degrees. And we're not sure why the practice, in fact, there's only like 3 states that still have this exception to the rule of taking portable fire extinguishers out of sprinkler buildings. And the reason we're a little concerned is to allow a fire to grow large enough for a sprinkler system to activate. One, it increases the loss of property. It increases loss of revenue because the fire has gotten much bigger than what could be dealt with a portable fire extinguisher. And the impact it has on our environment with the carbon footprint, it's been shown that it could reduce that footprint by 50%. And we've got a study going on right now to deal with that.
Thank
But
you. Sorry, it's been 2 minutes. If we could wrap it up, please.
that's fine. It's a lot of arguments is people don't know how to use them. And I think the information we provided shows you that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The next speaker is David Owen.
Mr. Chairman, I'm here first. You're going to wait till public comments in person.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Go ahead, Don.
The next speaker is Mr. Melvin. Robert
You have
Melvin.
2 minutes.
The next speaker is Mr. Ross Shearer.
Hello. Today's meeting is about adopting added value and added safety for Virginia houses. Good morning. I am Ross Shearer speaking to you from Vienna, Virginia, where I've lived since 1983. There was extensive public participation in the code development process this cycle. This produced an array of valuable non-consensus energy and fire safety code proposals. I wish to draw your attention to 3 proposals supported by the public. The 2021 model residential wall insulation standards have been objectively shown to lower energy costs significantly. The additional construction costs of adoption are recovered in less than 5 years. Complaints from some home builders about the practical challenges of applying 1 inch of continuous foam insulation is countered by some siding manufacturers. The website of one fiber cement siding maker heartily recommends the application of 1 inch continuous foam between their product and the exterior sheathing. Adoption of this step enhances attainment of 3 air changes per hour. Virginia's future homeowners and tenants should receive the added value these 2 proposed amendments will deliver. Residential sprinklers have been shown to save lives, reduce injuries, and significantly reduce property damage while lowering insurance premiums and carbon emissions. A Google search reveals that townhouse fires in Virginia are frequent, costly, and serious. We deserve the added safety the non-consensus proposals for sprinklers in townhouses will deliver. The empirical evidence is clear. The added value and added safety these 3 proposals offer clearly benefit the public. Please adopt them today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Travis Bolden.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, good morning. My name is Travis Folden, and I'm with a regional home builder based out of Blacksburg, and I'd like to speak in opposition to the non-consensus items and kind of in opposition to the comments that Mr. Shearer just said. So anyway, there's a broad consensus that local zoning regulations play a significant role in constraining the supply of housing, and builders across all parts of the state are struggling with restrictive zoning ordinances, which make it extremely difficult to deliver denser communities with housing options for folks across the income spectrum. But building codes in themselves are an important but often overlooked impediment to housing diversity. Building codes provide assurance for residents that their home is safe and a layer of protection from soaring energy costs. But like zoning ordinances, building codes that are too stringent can also limit the housing options that are available within a community. The cost impact of the non-consensus proposals is often difficult to understand if you're not building homes every day. Unfortunately, there's not enough time for me to go into all of the examples, but the two that Mr. Shearer just mentioned, moving to thicker wall insulation may seem innocuous, but it requires builders to use 2x6 lumber, extended window and door jambs, and of course the additional cost of insulation, all of which adds significant cost to the consumer with little quantifiable benefit, particularly for households where a few $1,000s can make the difference between qualifying and not qualifying today. I've also priced out the sprinkler requirement for our region, and between the cost of connection for the larger tap fees, sprinkler rough-in costs, and an additional backflow preventer, you're looking at between $16,000 and $19,000 added to the cost of construction, which is far more than you'll ever save in reduced insurance premiums. Housing affordability is not just an urban and suburban issue, it's a dire concern across rural Virginia. Harvard University released a report in 2019 which showed that 25% of the households in the Blacksburg MSA were spending an unsustainable amount of their monthly income on housing costs.
Holden, sorry, it's been 2 minutes. It's been more than 2 minutes. Thank you very much for your comments.
Next, we have Scott Sleen.
Is everyone muted? I can't.
Oh, we are muted. I apologies. Mr. Scott Sleen?
Sleem? Mr. Sleem,
Just like every.
the floor is yours. Is everyone still muted?
It looks like it.
Okay. Bear with us 1 minute.
They should have taken everything. They can hear us.
They hear us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dan Sandoval, please unmute and begin your public comment.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, my name's Dan Sandoval with Republic Home Builders. I'm in the Fredericksburg region. I build, I'm a scattered site builder, mostly on customers' land throughout through Spotsylvania, Stafford, Culpeper, probably about 7 counties that we build in throughout Virginia. I have major concerns with several of the proposals that the group is sent for non-consensus. My company builds homes for families in rural areas, and it's not traditional planned communities. We believe that some of these non-consensus things that have been presented to you will add significant cost to rural development or rural homes. Considering, I don't think they take into consideration that over 20% of the homes built in Virginia are built in the rural areas. And most of those are the more affordable homes. We're finding more and more first-time home buyers are moving out to the rural areas because that's what is affordable for them. With these non-consensus items moving forward, I believe it's going to significantly increase the cost of building homes in those areas and cut off the first-time home buyer in Virginia. Thank you for the consideration and your time today.
Thank you very much.
Scott Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Scott Williams. I'm the principal of a home building company and development company in Shenandoah Valley. Building codes set the minimum requirements for homes and other structures. It's very important to focus on the word minimum. The current system allows the market to dictate if the buyer would like to increase building standards. For example, at my company, we exceed the minimum code standards by using 2x6 framing for our exterior walls. This is our business model and our decision. The benefits of building to a higher standard are explained in detail to our buyers. In addition, we offer homeowner or home buyers the choice of having whole house under slab insulation instead of the 2-foot perimeter insulation the code requires. It's very important to maintain Virginia's minimum code at a level that allows the market to choose if they would like to exceed the code at certain levels. I am one builder that exceeds code and feels strongly that the code should continue to give my home buyers a choice. There has been much discussion over the last several years about mandating fire sprinklers be installed in new homes. Just like insulating my home's slab floors or building with 2x6 framing, installing sprinklers should remain a choice. There are a number of builders and buyers that choose to purchase a home that exceeds code and some that do not. I hope that you allow Virginia consumers to make their own financial decision when building a home. Please vote to disapprove the proposals on non-consensus agendas that exceed the ICC and current Virginia code. Affordability is terribly important and extremely challenged in this market. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jeremiah Horstick.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Jeremiah Horstick. I'm the founder and operator of Core Lot Homes in Fredericksburg, Virginia. We build entry-level homes for the first-time home buyers, move-up homes for the second-time home buyer, and permanent homes for those looking to retire and downsize. The New York Times recently published an article with the title, "Whatever Happened to the Starter Home?" The first sentence of this article said it perfectly. The economics of the housing market and the local rules that shape it have squeezed out entry-level homes. The same thing's happening in Virginia. The Virginia Realtors issued a report with a staggering statistic. Between 2019 and 2021, the percentage of all Virginia homes sold for $200,000 or less has decreased by 40%. The state's audit commission found that Virginia's stock of moderately priced homes and those that would be affordable to low and middle income households has been substantially reduced in the past few years. That's not all because of building codes, but I'm very concerned that many of the non-consensus proposals on the agenda today will make it even more difficult to build starter homes, particularly as the cost of land, labor, and materials increase every year. A part of the solution to the housing crisis is to give more flexibility to builders in zoning ordinance and building codes. We can ensure that new homes in Virginia are safe and efficient without requiring them all to be constructed at a level that only upper middle income households can afford. But if the minimum standard is set too high, builders like me will have little option but to build for only the higher end of the markets. I hope that you will vote to disapprove the USBC non-consensus items. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much.
Sean Callahan.
Sean Callahan, unmute. The floor is yours. Let's go to the next one.
Alicia Smith.
Alicia Smith, you can unmute. The floor is yours.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Alicia Smith, and I am Vice President of a general contracting firm in Roanoke, Virginia, with both commercial and residential divisions. I'd like to speak today in opposition to the non-consensus proposals. I know these ideas are definitely well-intentioned, but they'll also have a very real-world impact on our people's ability to afford housing in our region. As I was going through the board's meeting materials, it was very eye-opening to see how many proposals are coming to the board with all of the stakeholders in agreement. I've been around the construction industry for my entire life, literally from birth, and I know how difficult it can be to find agreement, especially on topics that are in regards to energy efficiency and fire codes. Many of the consensus proposals are significant and are much needed improvements to our building and energy codes. But for those of us who are closely involved in this process, it's refreshing to see that people with different perspectives are working together and finding common ground. That's a really good thing for the industry and our residents. So I hope that you will approve the building code proposals that are consensus for approval. As it relates to the non-consensus items, I ask that you disapprove where they exceed international code and the current Virginia Building Code. Many of these are extremely technical proposals, and I believe the different groups need to continue working on them during the 2024 cycle. And finally, I hope that the board will consider making housing affordability a much more prominent part of the next code cycle. Later today, I think you'll all be looking at a proposal to reduce the number of staircases in some residential building. That's a perfect example of how we can lower housing costs by increasing density or allowing more innovative designs. And we need more ideas like that. The board has several work groups that are focused on specific topics like energy efficiency. And in my opinion, it makes a whole lot of sense to have another work group that's focused solely on developing code proposals that maintain quality and safety while also advancing housing affordability. Affordability is becoming less attainable every day, so we need to work together in this industry and through the legislative processes to slow or curb the processes or methods that are drastically increasing our costs. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Mark Savage.
Good morning. My name is Mark Savage. I'm with the Fredericksburg Area Builders Association, and I'm speaking in opposition of the non-consensus items. I'd like to associate myself with the comments of Mr. Sandoval and Mr. Horstick. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Jared Ambrosino.
Jared Ambrosino, please unmute yourself. You're up. Let's go to the next.
Next, we have Sean Bellevue. Sean Bellevue.
Sean Bellevue. Okay, go to the next one. Yeah.
Cody Hastings.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Perfect. My name is Cody Hastings. I own and operate a small home building business here in Chesapeake, Virginia. My points today are intended to encourage the board to make housing affordability a priority in every vote that they make today and in the future. I was born and raised here in Chesapeake and care about what's best for my community. Having housing options that are affordable for all income levels is a major challenge all over the Commonwealth, as well as here in Chesapeake. I'm involved with every detail of my business, and I see firsthand how the impact of increased regulation is pricing out Virginians from purchasing a home. The decisions that you make on this board not only affect the affordability and impact tens of thousands of new home buyers each year in Virginia, but also the person that purchases that home from the original buyer down the road. Hundreds of working hours were put into this year's code development process from both DHCD staff and stakeholders. Please disapprove all non-consensus items that exceed the international and current Virginia code. If the different groups could not reach a consensus on the very technical issues, we will need to encourage all stakeholders to try and come to a consensus before we add additional costs to housing to just benefit one special interest group. Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much.
Pam Comstock.
Pam Comstock, yours.
Andrew Comstock. Andrew Comstock. All right, let's go there. Lyle Swola Yates.
Hello, audio test.
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Please approve the changes proposed in B 1006.3.4-21 to allow safer, more affordable, and more diverse infill housing near jobs and services where high-quality water and fire service are already in place. As Governor Youngkin says, quote, "The cost to rent or buy a home is too expensive, and we must tackle root causes behind the supply and demand mismatch. Our current building code does not allow single staircase residential construction beyond 3 stories, raising costs, making more affordable missing middle infill development impossible on many urban sites, pushing Virginians further out from where they wish to live, instead forcing them into overcrowded, outdated structures without modern safety equipment and materials, far from reliable water supplies and high-quality fire service. A recent analysis by Virginia architect Joshua Bateman found that these government mandates raise the costs for each 6-story residential building by over $300,000, not including land costs, per building. The specific code language here is borrowed from time-tested practice in Seattle, which gives design flexibility in exchange for more stringent safety standards. Only the parcel restrictions are removed, which are not safety related and are redundant with local zoning, at the recommendation of Seattle code expert Matt Hutchins. A line is added ensuring smoke control for outdoor staircases, also taken from Seattle Building Code from 1006.3.3, single exits, recommended by single stair code expert Conrad Speckert. When these building codes were adopted a century ago, we did not have the materials and technology in place to house people in cities as safely and affordably as we can today. So use these costly mandates instead. We've come a long way, thankfully, and it is time for our building code to allow us to benefit from those improvements and reduce our cost of living near jobs and services.
Thank you very much.
Next we have Paul Wallace. Paul Wallace. All right, next. Mark Symes. Mark Symes. Next one. Jay Hicks. Jay Hicks.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Jay Hicks. I'm with Gerald Properties in the Fredericksburg area. We are a commercial and home developer. I'd like to start by joining my comments to those astute comments made by Dan Sandoval, Jeremiah Horstick, and Alicia Smith. The idea of denying the non-consent agenda items is what we're after here today. Affordable housing is a huge issue in the Commonwealth of Virginia. As a recovering attorney just joining this industry in the last 3 years, it's astonishing the amount of smoke that this issue creates in our industry that we're not putting the fire hose on. And the idea of creating more regulations that hardens and hampers the builders more in delivering affordability to our communities is the last step we should be taking. And so therefore I ask you to deny the non-consent agenda items.
Thank you very much.
Next is Mary Coban.
Yes, good morning. I'm going to change topics. Mary Coben, the Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute. AHRI represents more than 300 of the equipment, component, and refrigerant manufacturers in the heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration industry. The American Innovation and Manufacturing, or AIM Act, was signed into law on December 27, 2020. The AIM Act mandates that the U.S. EPA phase down the supply of hydrofluorocarbon, HFCs, or refrigerants. The initial phase of the AIM Act began on January 1, 2022. The next step in the phase down, 40% reduction, will be on January 1, 2024. Therefore, AHRI notes that it is critical to move forward as quickly as possible to enable all stakeholders to be able to meet the phase down. AHRI appreciates the work done by the Virginia Board of Housing and Community Development. We want to provide our continued support for code proposals that were accepted, noted in the VA Code Book 2, Book 2, Part 1, page 445 to 501. These code changes will be critical for the successful implementation of low GWP refrigerants to meet the AIM Act. However, AHRI wants to highlight 5 code proposals: BF 202, BF 608, 1 and 2, BF 911, and BF 5003 that were heard but not accepted, starting on page 663. HRI asks for reconsideration for these critical code changes. These code changes were provided needed changes, particularly for manufacturers to be able to use larger quantities of low GWP refrigerants. It was noted that VA Virginia does not follow the fire code, but I would note that BF 202 also references the IBC along with containing the new GHS definition for flammable gases. Additionally, these codes provide the roadmap of how GWP flammable refrigerants can be handled in larger quantities by listing the maximum allowable charge quantities per storage locations. That's contained in BF 5003. AHRI urges the VA board to accept code proposals BF 202, BF 608, 1 and 2, BF 911, BF 5003s. These code changes can be incorporated into the building code during the correlation process. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Sean Halsey.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I hope that you will vote to disapprove the non-consensus proposals on the agenda today. I'm a Class A general contractor in the Fredericksburg area. I'm a certified HERS rater, a BPI building analyst, and a certified green professional by the National Association of Home Builders. I attained these designations in order to better educate myself and how our firm could provide the most energy efficient and healthy indoor air quality environment for our clients. I am also a firm believer that individuals and businesses have an obligation to minimize our impact on our environment and natural resources. As a builder, this means using environmentally responsible and resource efficient methods throughout the building's life cycle. It's a personal and business philosophy of mine. While I am personally supportive of any effort to increase residential energy efficiency, I also understand that building the most energy efficient features in new homes comes with a price tag for the homeowner. It isn't inexpensive. That's why the federal government and state governments across the country have implemented all types of grants and incentives to make it possible for homeowners to incorporate these practices into their homes. I'm a big supporter of these programs, and I'm fortunate to work with clients who have financial resources to afford many of these energy efficient upgrades. But there's a large segment of Virginians who simply can't afford the down payment on homes built to a higher energy standard. During the last code cycle, the board adopted what I thought were extremely positive improvements to Virginia's energy codes. These codes just became mandatory in July. To my knowledge, there has yet to be an analysis of how these homes are performing once constructed. In my opinion, before we make the decision to add additional cost to housing, we should be sure that we are addressing any identified performance problems in those new homes. I don't believe we have identified any of them from the most recent code changes. I hope that you will vote to disapprove the non-consensus proposals on the agenda today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Kyle?
Yes, Robert Glass.
Good morning.
Robert.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good. Good. Again, good morning. My name is Robert Glass, and I work for Daikin Comfort Technologies. I'm also speaking on behalf of Daikin Applied Americas, which has a manufacturing plant in Verona, Virginia, employing 500 plus people. Speaking in support of the comments by Ms. Coban, where there's a need to approve the new definition of flammable gas in BF 202.21, which includes a definition for the building code, which was not addressed by the committee. All these fire code proposals, a total of 5 as noted by Ms. Coban, are needed to correlate the new definition and maximum allowable quantities, or MAQs, with the building code to support ongoing production of equipment which use or will use new low GWP refrigerants. Failure to do so would prevent companies from building new manufacturing and service facilities in Virginia if the allowances of the MAQs is not updated to match those approved by ICC for the 2024 I codes and represented by these proposals. These proposals were not addressed by the committee during the review of the proposals that the HVAC industry was invited to participate in. And as a result, we were unable to address the importance of these critical requirements for the Virginia codes. Virginia has already made consensus approval for the use of A2L refrigerants in HVACR equipment in this code change process. We ask the committee to accept these code proposals so they can be used to correlate and to update the code to make allowances for larger quantities of these mildly flammable A2L refrigerants. Failure to do so will put Virginia at a severe disadvantage versus other states which have already made allowances for A2L refrigerants. HRI and the HVAC industry stand ready to assist and support the committee in any correlation activities needed. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Ernie Campbell.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, my name is Ernie Campbell from Harrisburg, Virginia. I'm the president of Evermore Construction. We build new homes and new commercial spaces along the Interstate 81 corridor from Roanoke to Winchester. I'm speaking today to encourage you to vote to disapprove the non-consensus proposals on your agenda today. According to FEMA, building codes protect, building codes are intended to reduce cost, and building codes are always improving, and building codes do help our community. The adoption process for the 2021 code included many work group meetings with interested stakeholders. From the meetings, you've been presented with consensus proposals from the stakeholders. I encourage you to approve the building code proposals that are consensus for approval. These consensus proposals do everything that FEMA mentioned. On the other hand, the proposals before you that are non-consensus do the opposite. They would add and not protect the home buyer, and they would increase costs beyond the current code. They would increase the cost to rent or to own a home, and in turn, they do not help the community in the way that I believe they are intended. With the affordable housing crisis we have in front of us now, increasing the cost beyond that just seems irresponsible. By approving the consensus items and the disapproval of the non-consensus items, you will be improving the Virginia code and you will be helping Virginians. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ryan Holland.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Brian Holland with the National Electrical Manufacturers Association. We are headquartered just up the way in Roslyn, Virginia. I'm speaking on 4 proposals this morning, all in Book 2, Part 1. The first is EB 102.2.2 parentheses 2-21. This is a NEMA submittal by me. That's tab 3, page 105. Page 741 if you're on the PDF. Our real focus on this one is the section 302.3 improvements. I'm gonna rest on my reason statement that we provided. We think everything's in there. However, just wanted to focus on the fact that you cannot repair a smoke alarm. They have to be replaced. And we have concerns with that second sentence. That's a performance feature. That's a construction feature. And we believe that that's going to limit the design professional or installer's options in terms of features that are permitted by NFPA 72 or required by NFPA 72 and also allowed through the UL certification that cannot be done by the 10-year sealed battery. So we think that this is a consumer choice issue and should not be in a prescriptive installation code. So we're asking you to approve this. If you do not want to put the exception number 3 in 102, we understand that, but we do think 302.3 needs some improvements. Moving on, the second NEMA proposals RE 3902.16-21. That is tab 3, page 91, 727 in the PDF. Again, speaking in support of this proposal that deletes exception number 2. I think we all know there's no correlation between GFCI protection that prevents shock and electrocution and also AFCI protection that reduces the occurrence of fire to arcing faults in the premises wiring system. So what this exception is doing is it's reducing fire protection for spaces like kitchens and laundry areas that are protected from shock and electrocution due to the wet nature of those locations. But the wiring methods and materials that are behind the walls, above the ceilings, below the floors are exactly identical to all the other wiring within the dwelling.
Sorry. We have to keep the agenda moving.
Next we have David Phelps. David Phelps. All right, next. Stephen Spletzer. Stephen Spletzer.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, hi, I'm Steven Spletzer of Comores, and I want to speak in support of the proposals that were submitted and discussed by Mary Coben of AHRI and also spoke about by Robert Glass from Dyken Comfort Technologies. I will try and be brief. The long and short is these proposals, including items BF 202 and BF 5003, for example, are critical for the HVACR industry. Under the AIM Act, we are transitioning away from the current HFC refrigerants and the systems that use them in the next few years. As manufacturers start producing new systems using new refrigerants, they are going to require the capability to warehouse and store larger quantities of these new refrigerants. And also, as these new systems are installed, wholesalers and distributors are also going to need to warehouse larger quantities of these refrigerants for service. So I urge you to please support the proposal submitted by AHRI. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kyle?
Ben Rabe.
Hi, this is Ben Rabe from New Buildings Institute speaking in support of the energy strengthening amendments. I know we have a long list of folks speaking today, so I just wanted to give my support for a number of the proposals outlined today, as well as specifically the compromise electric vehicle proposal that's been proposed in front of you. And thank you. I'll pass it on to the next person.
Thank you very much. John Bloom?
Hi, and good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to speak, and thanks to each of you for your public service. I've served as chair of two advisory groups in Arlington County, the Energy Committee and the Climate Change, Energy, and Environment Commission. In both roles, it was plain that there's no way that Arlington and many other communities across Virginia can meet their energy and climate goals without up-to-date building codes. The core problem is code provisions that lock in low energy performance and high greenhouse gas emissions. And it's very clear to me, and listening to these comments this morning, that the incentives on builders are just undeniably biased toward shorter term, and the measures that home buyers can't see and can't assess easily, saving money on those, doesn't necessarily reduce the market value, the price that the market will bear for homes, but does add substantially to the bottom line for builders. So it's the job of this board, obviously, to provide that essential longer term perspective. Wall insulation and air leakage requirements in the code are two prime examples, and I trust that the board will finally bring our code up to date in those critical areas, consistent with the ample evidence in the record. EV readiness is another urgent need. Arlington's EV adoption rate is still in the single digits, but climbing fast, and our multi-unit buildings already are suffering from lack of charging capacity. If raceways and capacity aren't in place for new buildings, the result will be terrible for residents, building owners, and public energy and emission goals. We're just seeing a terrible lack of readiness and low provision even in Arlington in the new buildings that we're seeing. The same issues of electric readiness come up over and over. Modern single-family homes need to have wiring capacity for solar panels.
Please conclude. That's been 2 minutes. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Doug.
Next, we have Mike O'Connor.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes. Go ahead. You're on.
Okay. Mike O'Connor representing petroleum and propane marketers. First comment is, I want to thank the department very much for the professionalism, the skill that was shown by the staff in the stakeholder process. We worked with a lot of agencies, and this is among the best. The second comment I have has to do with the fee increases that are proposed in 10-711-21. That was the subject of discussion during the stakeholder process. I raised, as did some other industries, concerns regarding the vetting that had been done, the education that had been done on that. I now see it as a consensus proposal. It's my understanding that there were concerns beyond mine, and raised that for the board. Finally, in agreement with some of the other groups that have spoken this morning, as far as the non-consensus items being put in the block and rejected. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Joy Loving.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm speaking on behalf of the Climate Action Alliance of the Valley, specifically in support of Sierra Club's September 18th and 28th recommendation. In particular, I'm focused on the EV readiness aspects of those recommendations. Canary Media recently pointed out that electric vehicles are moving quickly toward mass adoption. And as the U.S. migrates to greater use of electricity to meet our transportation needs and improve our energy efficiency, to remain competitive and to assist its residents, Virginia's building codes must address this reality. All Virginians need to do their part, and the building industry and the board are not exceptions to that. They should not exempt themselves. I think that they should keep in mind that the federal government, the recent bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, specifically gives local and state governments assistance to bring building codes at least up to the 2021 IECC levels. Virginia should certainly improve its building standards generally. I've owned an electric vehicle for 5 years, and when I built my home in 1995, we had no idea that we would be able to own one. We need the vision going forward to understand that the new reality is more electric vehicles. We had an outlet in our garage, and we are using a level 1 charger. It's not really easy or cheap to retrofit to the upgraded outlet at this point. My 2 adult children who live in upstate New York and the Outer Banks of North Carolina have had homes built in 2021 and 2022. Both of them have EV readiness capability. Surely if New York and North Carolina residents and builders can manage it, Virginia certainly can as well. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Next, we have Eric Goplerud.
Yes.
Eric Dopplerud? Yes, go
Yes,
ahead.
Yes. My name is Eric Goplerud. I'm chair of the board of the Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions, an organization involving more than 190 faith communities in Northern Virginia and the Valley. I'm speaking in support of 2 non-consensus residential items, wall insulation and air exchange, meeting the 2021 IEEC standards. We support the recommendations submitted by the Sierra Club and our organization. The federal government, through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, allocates over $1.25 billion to states to adopt the 2021 IEEC and the ASHRAE building energy efficiency standards. Government incentives will move states across the country to adopt these standards. The 2 laws further allocate well over $10 billion and tens of billions in tax credits for residential building energy efficiency. We support turning over or changing the 2 non-consensus items. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Jay Riat.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes. Good morning.
Great. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Jay Riat, and I'm the Chief Building Official for Fairfax County, Virginia, which is home to 1.2 million of the 8.5 million residents in Virginia, or roughly 14%. It's safe to say that Fairfax County plays a major role in the outcome of any decision at the state level. I am speaking in favor of approving the non-consensus energy items, recognizing that we are at a crucial point in the fight against climate change and global warming. Fairfax County Board of Supervisors supports actions that will require increased energy efficient construction with the goal of being net zero as soon as possible. One of the actions for achieving this goal is through stronger energy conservation codes that are developed and adopted through the consensus process, but this is not the only way. Codes and regulations at the national level have recognized that requiring higher insulation R values and more efficient heating and cooling equipment directly correlates to reduced carbon emissions. Many jurisdictions around the country are even leading the way through actions such as banning installation of natural gas burning appliances, which have been found to significantly increase carbon emissions. So this begs the question of why the consensus process allows Virginia to remain behind by allowing weakening amendments to be found in the Virginia codes. Allowing for these weakening amendments to the nationally developed codes through the consensus process to continue to show up in Virginia adopted codes is in direct conflict with our goal of building safe, sustainable, and affordable communities for generations to come. We strive to develop codes effectively through the consensus process that is proven effective in all other areas of the code except for this one. Fairfax County recognizes that if Virginia energy codes continue to be weakened through the consensus process, then we may be headed to a place where actions are to require more stringent energy requirements will be legislated for us. And I'm pointing to House Bill 2227. For these reasons, Fairfax County is highly supportive of eliminating the weakening amendments to the Virginia Energy Conservation Code and allowing adoption of the International Energy Conservation Code so that Virginia can play a significant leading role in reversing the effects of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I've got a couple who added their names to the chat, and then I'll go back to the top of the list and see if we missed anything.
Great, thank you.
Wyatt Gordon.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today. I just wanted to echo all of the speakers who are talking in favor of allowing single staircase residential buildings up to 6 stories. I think this is a really common sense item that we've seen lowers costs and allows for more housing, especially in cities that really need it. And we can do this in a safe way. So thank you all very much and have a good day.
Thank you.
Luca Gattoni Sally.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
My name is Luca Gattonicelli. I'm the founder of YIMBYs of Northern Virginia. Yes, in my backyard. We're a grassroots pro-housing group with about 1,000 members, very fast growing. We're active, of course, like I said, in Northern Virginia. I wanted to speak in strong support of the initiative to allow single staircase buildings up to 6 stories and in strong opposition as a townhome resident to the initiative to require sprinklers in townhomes. On that second measure, I was genuinely surprised that someone would even propose such a thing because if we look at the big picture, ladies and gentlemen, and as this body, continues its important work, I think it's really important to take a step back and think about whether new requirements are really a net benefit for public safety. The reason I say that is because I think the main source of fire risk right now for the residents of homes in Virginia is if they're stuck in an old, unsafe home because they can't afford to move out of it. And the single staircase apartment reform is a wonderful opportunity, especially in a place like Alexandria or Fairfax or Arlington, which I'm familiar with, those areas. It's a great opportunity to allow for denser infill development that's really good for the environment, allows for the creation of sustainable communities, and also gives people in my generation options for housing that they just wouldn't have otherwise. There's a housing affordability crisis, and I echo the comments of others today that this body needs to start thinking about that problem. Otherwise, there's not going to be anything to build except for the richest Virginians and the wealthiest people in our state. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next. Chair, we'll return back to the top of those registered in advance. Robert Melvin.
Robert Melvin.
Yes. Can you hear me? Okay, very good. Thank you. So my name is Robert Melvin. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the Virginia Restaurant, Lodging, and Travel Association. I want to specifically speak to our concerns with portions of the proposed statewide fire prevention code, specifically 107.1 1, 2, and subsection 9, all of those seem to target the hospitality and tourism industry, which I'm sure many of y'all in this room understand. We have just gone through one of the roughest 2 periods ever in our history. We've seen 20% of restaurants close permanently. We've seen amusement parks that have lost massive amounts of revenue and, had to make cuts in many places. And, one of the other things I'd like to point out is that some of these also could be very problematic for especially the weddings industry, which also has taken a real hit during COVID because of the mandated restrictions that were put in place to mitigate the spread of the virus. So at this point in time, especially with just how devastated our industry has been, and we continue to be in pandemic-induced deficits, we think that it's certainly not prudent to be considering any of these fee increases on these struggling businesses. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Scott Sleen. Scott Sleen. Sean Callahan. Jared Ambrosino. Sean Beliveau. Cam Comstock. Andrew Comstock. Paul Wallace. Mark Symes. That concludes everyone registered in advance. Next minutes. So there's anyone who wants to enter their name in the chat to speak. Yep. Let's give people a minute. Okay. Morgan Whalen.
Hi, good morning, Chair, members of the board. Morgan Whalen with Virginia Natural Gas. Thank you for your time this morning. Virginia Natural Gas is opposed to the non-consensus items that restrict natural gas usage. Natural gas continues to be a critical energy source for Virginia residents and businesses. Virginia Natural Gas has safely and reliably been serving Virginia since the late 1800s. As Virginians are experiencing record inflation, affordability is extremely important. Natural gas on average saves residential customers more than $1,000 annually. Energy reliability is also extremely important. And as we're living through more storms in Hampton Roads today, natural gas continues to be more reliable than electricity. Virginia Natural Gas is also reducing our emissions, and we will reach net zero by 2050 in alignment with the policies of the Commonwealth. And it is critical that Virginia continues to allow customers choice on how they choose to cook, warm their water, and heat their homes. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much. Now, anyone else? Mr. Chair, no one else has indicated they would like to speak. Start there first. Yeah, let's do it. Raise their hand. William Abramson. That's another registered comment. Or is that probably the last one? Okay, so let's do that.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. William Abrahamson, architect AIA. I'm speaking on behalf of the single stair proposal this morning, and for unlocking a lot of small and medium-sized parcels across the state to increase our access to affordable housing. The proposal is based on real and vetted precedent on existing regulations in other jurisdictions. There are plenty of precedents around the globe and the country of where this building type has been safe and successful in expanding options for housing and affordability. I encourage you to adopt that proposal.
Okay, thank you very much.
So that concludes the virtual comment portion, so we'll move to the in-person.
First speaker is Steve Shapiro.
Please come to the front.
The wrong deck. Let's get it on deck.
On deck, Kyle, who's on deck? So,
Bill Penniman is on deck, and then Andrew Clark.
okay, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Stand to the right so I don't hit that light.
Okay, great. Then
Good morning, I'm
Every 2
Steve
minutes.
Shapiro, and I'm here today representing the Apartment and Office Building Association of Metropolitan Washington and the Virginia Apartment and Management Association, who together represent the owners and managers of approximately 172 million square feet of commercial office space and 630,000 residential rental units throughout the Commonwealth. I've been involved in code development in Virginia for over 42 years, 34 as a building official in Hampton prior to my retirement. I've submitted written comments which can be found on pages 30 to 32 of your packet. And I'd like to quickly voice our strenuous opposition to non-consensus proposal 985, which would place the entire burden of providing new building communication systems on the building owner, rather than the current code which splits the responsibility. And it's more detailed in my written comments. We're also strongly opposed to non-consensus proposal 1169, which would eliminate the exception for installing fire extinguishers in groups A, B, and E that are equipped with quick response sprinklers, would now require the installation of these fire extinguishers. The same proposal has been before the board in each of the last 4 cycles and has been rejected. Again, I've got additional comments in my written comments. We're also opposed to the 18 non-consensus energy proposals, as we feel the board struck a fair compromise in the past between energy conservation and reasonable development. These proposals attempt to adopt all portions of the 2021 International Energy Conservation Code and eliminate the previous state amendments. Lastly, we would ask that you reject the 3 non-consensus proposals related to electric vehicle charging and ask instead that the proposals be designated for further study in the form of a work group. More details again in my written comments. In closing, I'd like to thank Cindy and her staff. They've done a tremendous job, always professional in study groups, sub-work groups, work groups, stakeholders meetings. They've done a yeoman's job. Thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next,
Bill Penniman.
and on deck.
Good morning. And on deck is Andrew Clark, and then Shariar.
Get out of that. Yeah.
So I'm Bill Penniman. I participated actively in the work groups and submitted roughly a dozen code proposals, primarily related to energy and energy efficiency. I also submitted written comments in recent weeks of supplemental comments on behalf of Virginia Sierra Club and 3 other organizations with a total of 30,000 members or more. Those comments highlight some of our proposals, but not all of them. As discussed in the comments, Virginia law was amended in 2021 to make clear that building codes are required to incorporate efficiency standards at least as stringent as the latest IECC, whenever the benefits and savings over time for residents of the Commonwealth exceed the incremental cost of construction. All of our proposals meet that statutory standard. If adopted, they would save energy and money for initial and future residents and benefit Virginia with better health, reduced air emissions, lower cost, greater resiliency, and a healthier long-term economy. Non-consensus in work group is not a lawful basis for rejecting efficiency standard proposals that meet the statutory test. But at the outset, the first thing to do is to get rid of the weakening amendments that have been on the books for roughly a decade and leave Virginia behind. As USDOE found and declared, full compliance with the 2021 IECC will produce savings compared to the 2018 IECC of 8.7 to 9.4% on site energy use, upstream energy use, energy costs, and carbon emissions. The savings for full compliance for Virginia would even be greater since we are a decade behind the 2018 IECC.
It's been 2 minutes, so
Pardon?
It's been 2 minutes.
Okay, well, let me just mention,
Good.
please take a look, apart from that, let's take a look at the EV charging proposals. It will save residents massive amounts of money from the beginning. Heat pumps are hugely important and will save residents money. As we propose it, you can use natural gas or propane as a supplement for backup source of heat.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next is on deck, Andrew Clark, Shariar Amiri, and Susan Stone.
Feel like I'm in grade school giving a book report.
There we go.
Do well. Right. Reading my notes. Mr. Chairman, Andrew Clark with the Home Builders Association of Virginia. I think we've hit the point in the agenda where everything's been said, but not everybody said it, so I'm going to say it. Now, a couple of things to point out. You've heard a lot of the industry's perspective on non-consensus versus consensus proposals. Just want to note, Virginia actually gets pretty good scores for energy efficiency. If you look at ACEEE, even though we're ranked 25th, when you go into the report, I think we get a near perfect score for residential energy efficiency. We're like half a point away from being where Maryland and some other states are. So it's really not an accurate statement to say we're not really doing anything, because I think over the last couple code cycles, the work group, this board has put forward some pretty common sense energy proposals that have kind of caught us up to where the international code is. When you look at DOE data and they look at energy cost per, no matter what the income bracket is, people living in homes built in the last 20 years are not energy cost burden. They're below that threshold that the federal government says, hey, people are spending too much money on energy costs. So we are making progress, and that's been because stakeholders have worked together. We don't always agree, but we've been able to kind of find middle ground. We worked on insulation last year. We worked on blower door requirements. So things are getting done, and that's because we've kind of let the work groups collaborate and try to find that common ground. So we do oppose the non-consensus proposals that are on the docket today. I don't know where Bill went. I think there's a lot of great progress and discussion we had on things like EV and some other proposals. Just don't think they're quite ready yet for this year, but it's going to be, I know, a conversation that comes up during the next code cycle. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Shariar Amiri, Susan Stillman, John Walter.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shariar Amiri. I'm the building official in Arlington County, Virginia. During the deliberation about the proposals, we put together a code group, an official group of fire officials and building officials, some of the industry experts, manufacturers, underwriters, laboratories, to discuss the emerging need to protect energy storage system and EV charging. It was really a eye-opening to a lot of people about the potential hazard. Obviously, we are not here to say it's highly sought after to have electric vehicles and energy storage system. As a 37-year practitioner in this field, I can tell you that the building codes are always about 10 years behind the technology. We are merely trying to catch up to make sure that the energy storage systems in the buildings and EV charging stations in the building, we have the safety measures so it doesn't cost a long-term cost. It is not a matter of the accidents. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. A single vehicle, when it burns, when it goes to the thermal runaway, it takes in excess of 30,000 gallons of water and 6 to 7 hours of effort to put the fire out. Just to park it somewhere and it catches on fire 4 hours later. You probably heard of a ocean liner sitting in the bottom of the Atlantic with 350 very expensive electric vehicles. The proposal I had was the ID number 1188 and 1193 that were consensus approval. I basically took nearly requirements of the 21 International Fire Code, tried to break it into the building code and existing buildings and new buildings. The two non-consensus about EV charging stations. I really encourage you to consider those because, as mentioned before, the potential hazard of a EV charging in a G4 level of a parking garage under a high-rise building could be catastrophic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Susan Stillman, John Walzer, and Chris Bridges.
I'm Susan Stillman from Vienna, Virginia. I'm a member of the Sierra Club, but I'm speaking as a private citizen. And I'm here in support of the EV proposals. There's three of them. One is to just have a conduit run and space on the panel. The other is to have the conduit wire and space on the panel. And the third is to have all of that plus an EV charger already installed. And I'm encouraging you to at least pass one or two of the first two because it's really expensive to go back. I've done some electrification in my home and punching the drywall, running the wires, replacing that drywall, that runs real money. And we can avoid that by just putting in some inexpensive conduit, potentially some wiring for the EV charging in new home construction for multifamilies as well as single family residents and some commercial buildings. It's really important to be able to do this because that's where the market's headed. EVs are just taking off. In the town I live in, it seems like every other car is an electric vehicle. They're fun to drive, they're less expensive to own. They're really, and that's where all the manufacturers are going. I will say that the arguments by the home builders against adopting the non-consensus items are all about initial cost. Well, you still have to heat and cool that home over its lifespan. And so let's think about that too. If I know what the cost is going to be based on my mortgage, then I know what the cost is going to be. But as the cost of electricity and natural gas go up, then those are variable costs that I can't account for up front. More efficient homes help me avoid that sort of cost risk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. John Walzer, Chris Bridges, and Mike Yutzi.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm Don Walser with Fairfax County. Today I'm going to be speaking on three provisions, the first of which I'm asking for approval for B918, which is the in-building emergency communications provision. Providing radio coverage should be a mandatory requirement that owners are required to install within their buildings. Today, when you consider this proposal, I would ask you to consider a firefighter, a team of firefighters that is lost inside a building and has the inability to communicate with their incident commander and the outside world. They would not be able to call for additional resources or let anyone know where they are located in the building. I would also ask you to consider that firefighter that's by themselves. They've gotten lost from their team. They have no ability to communicate with anyone, and they can't find the way out of the building. And they have a communication device attached to them with no mechanism to talk to the outside world. This is also an issue for police officers. When they're responding to active shooter scenarios, they would not be able to communicate to their responding police force to let them know where they're located, where the shooter's located, and where any victims are located. So this is a larger emergency services issue, not just a firefighting issue. I also asked today for approval for B3432, which is the energy storage system provisions. And these are important and common sense proposals to increase the safety, sustainability, and resilience of new technology that is critical to support the future energy needs of the planet while protecting the people that are using the technology itself. I also asked for disapproval of B10.6.3.4, which is known as a single exit stairwell proposal. This change needs to be considered at a national level. There needs to be an open debate that incorporates many opinions. Jurisdictions that are used as comparisons incorporate many life safety provisions into this proposal that are not incorporated into the specific one you'll be reviewing today.
Thank you. It's been
2 seconds.
One last comment.
This is a significant change. It must be looked at holistically in the context of necessary fire protection measures. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chris Bridges, Mike Yutzi, and Jason Wallace.
Good morning. I'm Chris Bridges. I'm the building official and zoning administrator for the city of Martinsville, Virginia, and also on the ICC board of directors. And I would just want to make sure that everybody here knows how important you're considered all around the country and how jealous they are of our process. Because so many have no idea just what you give to the citizens of Virginia. Speaking in opposition to the non-consensus items, you just heard what happened to the starter home, and yet you're being asked to put in EV. Those two things have to be mutually exclusive because it goes to the initial cost of the home. And it really doesn't matter what the long-term cost of the home is if you can't get into the home to start with. So returning to some common sense starter pricing needs to be a primary focus on affordable housing. The incremental changes that we have been making to the code since I've been involved since 1995 are the right path. And I think that speaks to the success of Virginia codes through the years and that longevity. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Mike Hudson, Jason Laws, Andrew Milligan.
Good morning, Mr. Sheriff, members of the board, DACD staff. I want to meet too a lot of what Chris just said. He took half of what I had going on. So, and I'm kind of speaking in opposition to some of the non-consensus changes. Affordable housing. Part of the scope of the code is we build the safest house for the most affordable cost. Adding all of these things in is driving up the cost of everything. The last few years, cost has risen, lumber, everything. It all adds up. So what I like to say is we have the job here, keep the housing affordable, and that's the biggest thing that I'm up here to speak about. Like I said, I had a list. Chris took it. I'm not very good at going off of note. So it's some said a 5-year payback on insulation, EV chargers, residential sprinklers. They're all options. Let's leave them as options. Let's not make them requirements. We make them requirements. We put people out of the price range if they're able to afford a house. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jason Laws, Andrew Milliken, Susan Miller.
Jason Laws representing the BBCOA. Mike just took some of mine, so I guess it's fair play. Just wanted to commend the board on doing an excellent job. Wanted to speak in opposition, specifically the requirement for sprinklers in townhouses. I think the board's done an excellent job by making that an option. Also by adding incentives to incentivize the builders or developers to choose to do that if they see fit. We think it's a huge issue when it comes to affordable housing. This is a way to keep that as an option, keep it down. The other issue I have with it is through the past code cycles, this board has chosen to provide those incentives, and the data that's provided currently doesn't take into effect the incentives that we've done for the fire safety provisions. So I think there's issues there with the data. It's not live data because our current code cycle or the houses that are included in that data aren't on our current code cycle. So I think we are providing safe houses for our residents. And I think we just want to take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Andrew Milliken, Susan Miller, and Bob Chip.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Andrew Milliken. I'm a fire protection engineer from Stafford County and chairman of the Virginia Fire Services Board's Codes and Standards Committee. Rather than go into deep detail on many items this morning, I want to simply suggest that you remember to stick with the model code on non-consensus items. Model codes are established as internationally recognized standards through rigorous and thorough code development process. When faced with tough decisions on non-consensus items, it is essential to all Virginians that you use the model codes to direct and guide your determinations. This principle applies to so many non-consensus items you will be discussing today. Single exit stairwells for 4 and 5 stories are not endorsed by the model codes, nor are the special locking hardware in public buildings. In-building in-building emergency responder communication has been recognized as a fundamental requirement in model codes and adopted as a requirement of building owners in 47 states. Most of all, fire sprinklers and townhouses have remained in model codes for more than a decade, and at less than $1.50 a square foot, it's time for Virginia to follow this guidance and save lives. Following the model code guidance is your standard of care when promulgating code requirements. It is your responsibility to have due regard for the model codes required, and I hope you'll carefully consider each item in this way today. Thank you for your time, consideration, and commitment to public safety through effective codes and standards. These documents are not just words on a page, but daily protect the lives of those in each of our communities and the lives of first responders throughout Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Miller, Bob Shippey, and Glenn Besa.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Susan Miller. I'm a retired family physician and a member of the Virginia Clinicians for Climate Action. We are here in support of the Sierra Club's recommendations for changes to the current revision of building code standards, and we're here to speak specifically to the public health benefits that accrue from better insulation, ventilation, and energy efficiency. Building codes are health codes. We know building codes focus on the safety issues that are so important with regard to weather events such as Fiona and Ian, and we're here to speak for the importance of addressing the root causes of these events, because buildings are responsible for 40% of the carbon emissions in the United States. These emissions are responsible for sea level rise that we're seeing in Hampton Roads and the increased devastation of the storms that we just witnessed. It's incumbent upon us to create the buildings that tackle these problems now. Thus, VCCA supports all of the Sierra Club recommendations regarding improved electrification, adoption of heat pumps, preparing easy connections for solar panels and EVs. In addition, VCCA supports cessation of any new gas connections in residential buildings. There is substantial medical data to support the improvement in respiratory health by the elimination of all gas appliances. I ask you to think of the future. And thank you for working to improve the health of Virginia.
Thank you. Bob Shippey, Glenn Besa, and David Owen.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Bob Shippey. Some of you know that I'm affiliated with Sierra Club and help them a lot, but I'm speaking today as an Henrico resident. By trade, I'm a financial guy, so I really do empathize with the comments about affordability. For people that know me, know I love to save a dollar whenever I can. And, a lot of the provisions that Sierra Club and others are asking for that have been deemed non-consensus really do save money. I'll speak to one in particular, the solar readiness piece, which is Rec R404-221. I don't know what your electric bills are these days. Mine are generally zero. And that's because I put solar panels in my house. And more people are going to be doing that. And I think it's a huge marketing opportunity for home builders to have solar ready homes that they're building. I'm sure a lot of you probably already are doing that, but why not put it in the code? Everyone's going to be asking for it. And it really is an affordability enhancer. The other thing that's a little bit more long-term maybe, but I think just makes sense because it's so cheap, is Rec R404-21. This is just to make sure that you've got conduits to the kitchen area and where you're doing your clothes washing. Again, we know that you're building structures that are going to be around for decades, and we know that during that time, we are going to go completely over to electricity. Just depends when, but it's going to be during the lifespan of that building. And so to do that project later and convert over, it's so much more expensive. And I think it's very cheap to do upfront. So I would encourage you to think of those two in particular, and not just treat all the non-consensus as a block, but look at a couple of these really sense. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Glenn Besa, David Owen, and Eric Lacey.
My name is Glenn Besa. I'm speaking as a private citizen, and I'm speaking in support of the Sierra Club recommendations. If you look at House Bill 2227, it not only asks that you consider these, but it provides a standard. If you look at that standard, it says the board shall assess the public health, safety, and welfare benefits for adopting standards at least as stringent as the IECC, including potential energy savings, air quality benefits compared with cost of initial construction. We've heard a lot about costs. you haven't heard a lot about these benefits. And I think it's really important and incumbent upon the board to consider those benefits. For example, why on earth are we using the 2009 standards for wall efficiency, for wall insulation? It makes no sense that we would be using 2009 standards, particularly in a time when we recognize that climate change is real, that energy costs are going up. You know, Dominion just announced a big increase in the cost to the people that own the houses that many of you folks build. It just makes no sense at all. It's really important. Consider also that the Inflation Reduction Act that was just adopted provides $330 million for state and local governments to implement this new code, the 2021 code. Okay, you're leaving money on the table if you don't move forward. In addition to that, there's even more money available for better than code provisions, things like the EV provisions and such as that. So if you don't act to reform Virginia's code, people are going to lose. The state's going to lose important millions of dollars, actually tens of millions of dollars, to implement these. And the homeowners are going to be losers too, because they're going to be paying a whole lot more for their electricity, for their gas in inefficient homes. Let me just conclude observing that improved efficiency makes good economic sense as well as environmental climate sense. And I would urge you to adopt the Sierra Club recommendations. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. David Owen, Eric Lacy, and Leanne Williams.
Good morning. I'm David Owen, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm a recovering retired home builder, so I don't have a real dog in this fight, but I have a lot of experience here. What I'd like to point out to the board is I'm in opposition of the non-consensus items. And disapproval of the non-consensus items doesn't mean that homeowners still don't have the opportunity to get those benefits. Those homeowners can make the choice of how to spend their money. It's their money and they should have that choice. Put this in the building code, I believe, should not be done, but the homeowners have the choice. Homeowners, and let's be clear, we've heard a lot about affordability. Building code is not the thing that's pushing affordability up by itself. We've got rising interest rates. In January, at 3.25 interest rate, $2,500 mortgage payment, someone could afford a home at $517,000. Today, we don't have the new interest rates out, but August interest rates at 6.25. That same $2,500 payment, that homeowner can only afford at $399,000. Our homeowners are getting beaten over the head. We don't need to hit them again. Let them choose how they spend their money. Thank you
very much. Eric Lacy, Leanne Williams, and Joe Brancoli.
Good morning, board members. First of all, thank you for making time to listen to us. I know these meetings are real marathons someday, and today's no exception, but we appreciate the opportunity. I'm Eric Lacy from Oakton. I represent the Responsible Energy Codes Alliance. We actually work with states around the country on the adoption and implementation of the latest edition of the Model Energy Code. And we're actually working with about 16 or 17 other states that are looking at the 2021 IECC. So you're not alone in this struggle to hear everybody out and try to come to a good compromise. I do want to speak in favor of what's on the table. A lot of good work has gone into this. I don't want to look past that. We appreciated HB Virginia's willingness to work with us, kind of some good compromises on things like duct testing and tightness. But I'm still going to encourage us to go further. There are a few specific areas where I think we can do better as Virginians. One is the wall insulation. We're way behind on the wall insulation requirements in the Commonwealth. Also, air tightness. The model code has long had in place very tight requirements. Virginia took one step in the right direction in the 2018 update to the IECC, and there's a little ways to go still. These are both very sensible, cost-effective measures that will benefit us over the lifetime of the home. It's important to remember that it's not like putting a new menu item on in McDonald's where you can kind of test something out and you can replace it if it doesn't work out. These homes are built and they're there for 100 years. So things like air leakage, wall insulation, sure, a homeowner could decide to upgrade in the future, but it's going to be really prohibitively prohibitive to do these things. So it's important for this body to find the reasonable level of efficiency and just set the regulation there. That's the role of regulation. We can't just look to the free market to solve all of our problems. It won't work out that way. There were some concerns expressed about zoning, interest rates, land, labor, all these things. Energy and reducing the efficiency of the code is not the solution to those things. improving the energy costs has to be part of our plan going forward. So I encourage us to keep working on these things.
Thank you very much. Leanne Williams, Joe Brancoli, and Kevin Gianfarini.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Lee Williams. I reside in the city of Richmond, and I'm a Sierra Club member and speaking as a citizen. And I will use my computer so I'm concise and stay 2 minutes. Today, I am urging you to consider consumers first and update Virginia's lagging energy building codes. Sierra Club's proposed regulations have outlined a number of deficiencies in the current code, as well as highlighted developer interest in rolling back energy efficiency construction standards in 3 categories, almost 2 decades to 2006 standards. Strong building codes not only enhance a home or office's comfort level by minimizing temperature variability, properly installed insulation provides consumers with lower utility bills and protects us from the volatility of the energy market by preventing heat loss in winter and heat gain in the summer, reducing energy use and costs year-round. The Department of Energy estimates that a typical household can save 25% on utility bills with energy efficiency measures alone. As I witness the growing effects of climate change, I feel an urgency to reduce harmful emissions for the health and safety of my grandson. I bought an electric vehicle that I can charge at home. My heat pump and mini split are an energy efficient way to be comfortable year-round while reducing dangerous emissions and lowering my energy costs. It's important to note that the cost to operate these electric appliances and vehicles is significantly lower than their fossil fuel counterparts. Today's heat pumps use energy 3 to 5 times more efficiently than old electric and natural gas options. And I don't need to talk about the price of gas at the pump. When discussing emissions, indoor air quality is another important and often overlooked health consideration. Burning gas in our homes without adequate ventilation, sometimes not required by code, something that is not required by code on stoves, has significant consequences for the air we breathe most of the day. Data shows that children in a home with a gas stove have an increased risk of asthma. All electric induction stoves completely void that risk. Wiring is essential. You cook food better than with gas and without the indoor air pollution. I urge the board to vote in favor of updating Virginia's code to 2021 IECC standards to make it easier for all Virginians to live, work, charge, and play in an energy efficient and cleaner environment. Thank you.
Joe Brancoli, and the last signed up speaker of the day is Kevin Gianfarini.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for receiving these remarks this morning. My name is Joe Brancoli. I'm a citizen of Richmond, Virginia, where I am the chair of the local Sierra Club group. So I'm here today, surprised, in support of the Sierra Club's recommendations. Specifically, I would like to address the air leakage standard and to ask you, the Board of Housing and Community Development, to vote to bring the Virginia standard up to the 2021 IECC standard. For our climate zone, the IECC prescribes 3 air changes per hour at 50 pascals. Virginia's air leakage standard is 5 changes per hour, a 67% discrepancy there. It does not increase the materials cost by much to achieve this 3-hour change standard when a home is under construction. Whereas for a homeowner to attempt to make their home more airtight later, there is significant cost and effort. Best to do this work before the drywall is in place. Building a home to high efficiency standards may cost a bit more upfront, but pays dividends over the life of the home in quality of life and financially. The EPA says that there are monthly savings to be had in the heating and cooling costs when a home is more tightly constructed, and smaller HVAC systems can be used in a tighter home. Tighter homes also have less noise and are more protected from pests and insects, leading to higher quality of life for the homeowner. The U.S. Department of Energy and Pacific Northwest National Laboratory evaluated the 2021 IECC updates and found them to be cost effective. Virginians deserve homes that give them these advantages. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Last speaker is Kevin Gianfarini.
Morning, everyone. My name is Kevin Gianfarini, and I am speaking as a private resident of Richmond. My understanding is that the Board of Housing and Community Development has a statutory responsibility to regulate heating and cooling. The Sierra Club recommendations require a heat pump be installed in new homes where an air conditioner would otherwise be installed. I'm speaking in favor of this. Recently, I became a first-time home buyer. During my search, a home without a heat pump was not an option. I was personally surprised to see how common gas heat is in it. A heat pump is a drop-in replacement for an air conditioner and is much more energy efficient than gas, propane, and resistive electric heat. Modern heat pumps keep houses warm even when the outdoor temperatures dip below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, requiring auxiliary heat only in rare circumstances. Living in Richmond, I'm acutely aware of the gas utility rate increases. Richmond Gas Works has raised rates by 40%, which many residents will not be able to pay. In contrast, Dominion Energy has imposed a less stringent rate hike of 12%, citing only increased gas prices. The diverse electricity generation profile of Dominion relies less heavily on gas, currently generating about 40% of our electricity from other sources. While far from perfect, we cannot deny that heat pumps insulate homeowners from geopolitical fossil fuel volatility. The arguments regarding affordable housing made today fail to account for ongoing energy prices, which can be crippling and unpredictable. Installing heat pumps where air conditioners would otherwise be installed takes advantage of a grid that's less beholden to fossil fuel volatility. Furthermore, to achieve Virginia's goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, we need to move to electric heat pumps. I urge the board to approve this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chair, we have no other speakers signed up this time. Okay. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak before we close out the public comment? And that's it. That concludes the public comment portion. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn that.
I'm so moved. Second.
All right. Let's take a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's it. Yes.
As noted in the agenda and other notices, this will conclude the virtual portion of the meeting. Those online.
Got it. Great. Thank you very much, Mel. Should we take a few minute break? Okay. Do we need to motion for that? No.